When you tune into your genuine emotions, you empower yourself to make choices that are aligned with your inner truth. You maintain a sense of personal agency, ensuring that what you do reflects your deeper self rather than being solely driven by some reactions. For example, listening to our gut and only relying on it, meaning I felt this, so I did that, may be a trauma response, not the voice of your authentic self. And by authentic self, we mean the parts of the self that are free from what we call trauma response attachments. Those trauma response attachments are most of the time reflexive and unconscious. And that's the dilemma. They are part of something we learned to do so well in the past that it become automatic. It flies, if you will, under the radar of the consciousness. They don't give us any other choice than follow them, follow that reflection, that somatic suggestion. How to distinguish the voice of the self versus the voice of those attachments. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 red flags that give you a clue that what you're feeling and then the response you may have is not always driven by your authentic self. So let's dive into each of those 5 red flags that help you to identify your own authentic voice versus someone else's voice and truth. First red flag, you consistently react with intense emotions that are disproportionate to the situation at hand, suggesting that your emotional responses may be driven by unsolved past experiences or unconscious triggers rather than your authentic self right now. Imagine, for example, you are in a long line of cars already running late for an important appointment when someone emerges into your lane without signaling and you explode with anger, honking your horn and shouting, even though it was a small inconvenience. But here's the deal. Most of the time when we are intensely triggered, our reaction looks perfectly proportionate to the situation in our eye, right? Even if we overreacted. So what I suggest is taking a pause when this overcharging pass a little bit to observe the situation as you were not in your own body or in the body of other person, but in the body of a spirit, if you will, that watch the scene from the most neutral perspective you can. And take those moments to reflect on what happened with curiosity. So maybe you can ask yourself questions like, when I feel that intense anger or overactivity, what deeper need or desire for myself do I sense as unmet or not respected? When I don't express my anger outwardly, how does it affect me internally? Or again, are there any specific things in my environment that seems to make my anger or overreactivity worse? How I can create a more supportive and nurturing environment for myself daily? What strategies do I currently use to cope with my anger? Are they effective? Or do they sometimes make things worse? Can I explore healthier alternatives? Finding yourself engaging in self-destructive behavior or making choices that prevent your long-term well-being and undermine your values show disconnection from your authentic self and a tendency to undermine your own happiness and growth. This could be the case of procrastination, for example, negative self-talk, imposter syndrome, avoiding risk-taking, people-pleasing, or perfectionism. So imagine, for example, that you have an important deadline approaching for work or a school project. But instead of focusing on your task, you find yourself scrolling through social media for hours. You know that this behavior distracts you and undermines your productivity, and by repeatedly engaging in this self-sabotaging pattern, you make your own success harder. And if you catch yourself into this pattern, Here's some prompts you can use to learn from it. How does my self-sabotage relate to my sense of self-worth and self-esteem? Are there any core beliefs or narratives that I hold about myself that contribute to my self-sabotaging behaviors? And if so, am I sure I still have to keep them with me, or maybe I can gradually and gently let them go? How does shame or guilt play a role in my self-sabotage? Do I punish myself or feel unworthy of success and happiness? How I can cultivate self-compassion and overcome those destructive beliefs. Next, red flag. You struggle with establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries in relationship, often sacrificing your own needs and value to please others or avoid conflicts. So imagine you have a friend or siblings who constantly show up expecting you to drop everything and spend time with her or him. Despite feeling overwhelmed and wanting to establish boundaries, you struggle to communicate your needs clearly without feeling guilty or causing conflicts. Your emotion and action are influenced by the fear of upsetting and disappointing your friend or your sibling, or by the opinion that your friend might have about you because of your needs. So here's some prompts you can use to dive deeper and get to know your lack of boundaries a little bit better, like it were someone, like a person, who's been close to you for such a long time, but you never ever talked to him or her or it. I don't know. How does my lack of boundaries affect my overall well-being and relationships? Can I identify any pattern or recurring consequences of not having clear boundaries? What core beliefs or fears may be underlying my difficulty in establishing boundaries? Are there any specific individuals or relationships in my life that consistently challenge my boundaries? How can I communicate and reinforce my boundaries in those dynamics? You have a strong inclination to people please and prioritize others' needs and desire over your own, often neglecting your authentic emotion and desire in the process. This behavior can indicate a disconnection from your true self and a tendency to suppress your own needs from the sake of external validation or acceptance. So for example, imagine you have a parent, you have a strong expectation and opinion on your own life choices. They expect you to follow a specific career path or make decisions that align with their own desires. Despite having different aspiration or interests, you constantly conform to their expectation and suppress your own desires, right? You go along with their plan and choices, sacrificing your own authenticity and a sense of the self to maintain their approval and avoid conflicts. Your emotion and action are primarily driven by the needs for external validation. If you recognize fawning as one of your tendencies, hold space for yourself, reflecting on one or more of those questions that you may ask yourself. Are there specific individuals or type of people who trigger my fawning response more than others? What dynamic or power imbalances contribute to this pattern? What core beliefs or fear may be driving my tendency to fawn? Are there any past experiences that have influenced this pattern? Is there any space to revisit this pattern as something that was really useful in the past, but now has become like a heavy rock that blocked my growth? And the last one, enmeshment. you have difficulty distinguishing your own emotions and desire from those of others, often becoming overly entangled or enmeshed in your experiences. In this scenario, you feel responsible for others' emotions. You feel others people's emotions as they weigh on your shoulders. Plus, you feel guilty and frustrated when someone close to you is sad or is in a bad mood, or you can do anything about that. You can do anything to change their emotions. So for example, picture a scenario when one of your friends is going through a tough breakup. Instead of providing support while maintaining your own emotional well-being, you become overly enmeshed in her struggles, right? You neglect your own needs and emotions, becoming entangled in her pain to the point where you lose sight of your authentic self. If you find yourself in a similar situation, watch this discovery as a door open on a new sense of awareness and a renewed relationship with yourself. And maybe you can ask yourself those questions throughout the journey. Am I afraid of rejection or abandonment, maybe, if I don't align my emotions with others, or if other people don't align their emotion with mine? How does this fear influence my tendency to enmesh? What aspect of my own emotional experience am I neglecting or suppressing when I enmesh with others? Do I have difficulty setting and maintaining emotional boundaries? How does this challenge contribute to my enmeshment with others? So I know what you are saying here. Those 5 red flags are all signs of self-abandonment, and you nail it. Self-abandonment is when we fail to give ourselves the love and attention we truly deserve and need. And those 5 red flags are various methods we use to place others' need and expectation before our own, ignoring our desire, value, and at the end of the day, our own well-being. And we do that not because we are crazy or whatever, but rather because we've learned a long time ago that show up our needs make us unlovable. But we are here navigating this life as adults to learn that it's not true anymore. The key point in working with those 5 red flags is not avoiding them at all and at any cost, always. Sometimes going with some of those is okay, and it's a sign of emotional intelligence. For example, we don't need to always say what we think. In some situations, the harmony of the group is more important. The crucial thing is that you switch off the automatic pilot from those red flags and you start using them intentionally. So do you use observing yourself in one or more of those partners? About me, for example, no doubt, mine are self-sabotaging, 100%, maybe it's the first. Disproportionate reaction, yeah, it's the first. Disproportionate reaction, and also enmeshment. Even if I done a long job on it, and I'm a little bit better than I was a teenager, but yes, I guess I still have to work pretty much on it. Yeah. So what's your red flag? Let me know in the comment here below. I can't wait to connect with you, to learn from you, and to grow this small community. So now it's small. I hope in future we grow a little bit, and to connect thanks to this new space here on YouTube. So thank you so much for watching. Hope it helps. See you next time.